This is the iGPSport SR30, the latest cycling radar introduced to the market. I already had my hands on it at Eurobike 2023, but it was not available to the public there. However, iGPSport kept their promise and sent me a unit for a review. I've been using it for about a month now, and there is a lot to talk about. It's possible that after this review I won't get a free product from them ever again. I will tell you about its benefits, disadvantages and issues I found. I will compare it to popular radars like Garmin Varia, Bryton Gardia and Magene L508 to help you decide which one to buy. But before we dive in, let me briefly explain how it works and why you should use it. Cycling radars are like high-tech bicycle mirrors. They act as your additional eyes, visually and audibly alerting you to approaching cars. They achieve this detection using radar waves. Personally, I feel much safer with a radar because it gives me a better idea of what's happening behind me. It allows me to prepare for overtaking, especially when I might not hear a car due to a strong wind, so I can easily adjust my riding style. Garmin Varia radars were the pioneers in this technology and became an instant hit. Naturally, their popularity attracted more manufacturers like Bryton, Magene and now iGPSport to join the competition. So, how did the SR30 hold up? I tested it side by side with Garmin Varia RTL515 because I consider it the most reliable and accurate. I use it as a benchmark radar. Varia detected cars by a few tenths of a second sooner than SR30, despite claiming a 10-meter longer detecting distance of about 150 meters. This may not seem like a big deal, but if a car is traveling at 90 km per hour, that's 25 meters per second, so you will have less time to react. Another problem is that the SR30 can detect vehicles at speeds of 10 to 120 km per hour relative to your speed. So, if you are riding 30 km per hour and a vehicle is going faster than 150 km per hour, the radar won't be able to detect it. In comparison, the top speed of the Varia is up to 160 km per hour. The Magene L508 and Gardia R300L have the same maximal detecting speed as the SR30. Unfortunately, you can't rely on everyone to follow the speed regulations. On straight and clear sections, they are often broken, or at least in our country. If radar cannot detect a vehicle within its technical specifications, we are talking about a false negative. But how to classify vehicles exceeding this limit? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. The multi-object detection ended better. It tracked multiple cars pretty well. The maximum number of cars it can detect is 8, but I honestly never maxed it out because I live in a village. So I tested the multi-car detection by pointing the radar at the highway, and that's also where I found about the speed limits. The radar managed to detect multiple cars going slower than 120 km with ease. But once they went faster, I was out of luck. I must admit, however, that I was pleasantly surprised by its accuracy. It worked better, meaning it gave me fewer false positives than Gardia or Magene radars. However, I decided to test these two radars again because of new firmware updates, so stay tuned. I estimate that the SR30 averaged about 2 false positives per hour of riding. Varia is more accurate in this aspect. But honestly, these false positives didn't bother me at all. One area where the SR30 is a clear winner is visibility. In addition to a very bright taillight that offers several light modes, it also increases your side visibility thanks to the side LEDs. This helps especially in low light scenarios. I honestly didn't pay too much attention to this feature in previous radar reviews. For example, Bryton and Magene radars hardly increased side visibility, and the SR30 is better than the Varia in this regard. The taillight is another safety feature in radars. I even feel like it makes drivers pass me with more distance. I am simply more visible, making it harder for drivers to ignore me on the roads. By the way, you often ask me if radar changes the flashing pattern when overtaking and for how long. The SR30 changes the pattern for only a second or so. so most drivers won't even notice it. Those of you who don't have a bike computer or don't want to invest in one, don't have to be sad because the iGPSport app can replace it. It can even give you haptic and audio alerts in the background, so you can overlay with a map, for example. Or I can recommend the Cadence app, which can display map and the radar at the same time. Unlike Magene L508, with iGPSport radar, you can't customize the light modes using the app. Personally, I haven't used this feature much because the preset modes are usually sufficient. Where the SR30 loses a bit is the ability to automatically turn itself off when you finish your ride on the bike computer. This also applies to turning it on. iGPSport SR30. Oh my god, who comes up with these names? Bike computer doesn't offer the ability to control the radar at all. So I tried the Garmin Edge 840. Unfortunately, the radar control in the widgets didn't load for me on the first try. But one day, it started to work. What a mystery! The SR30 remembers the last light mode used, so you don't have to switch it manually like you do with the Varia. It's a shame that iGPSport didn't learn its lesson from the Varia and its biggest weakness, a bad mount. The one for the SR30 is similar. It doesn't hold well on my deep seat post and need to be adjusted frequently, for example, after riding on cobblestones or from the saddle. The Gardia mount is so far absolutely unbeatable. By the way, iGPSport and Magene mounts are compatible with each other. Garmin mount is rotated by 90 degrees. Where the SR30 pleasantly surprised me is the battery life. At Eurobike, iGPSport representatives initially told me very ambitious numbers, something like 20 hours in solid mode. So I asked them to verify. They corrected themselves and the battery life is supposed to be shorter. The official claimed battery life is now 16 hours in day flash and 8 hours in solid mode. So, what was the real battery life? I used the radar in flash mode and it lasted almost 17 hours. But it's important to say that this battery life included a few dozen minutes when I stopped and the radar automatically went to sleep after 2 minutes. However, the important thing is that the real battery life is very similar to the claimed one. The auto sleep feature is useful as it saves battery and you don't have to think about turning the radar off when you stop for a coffee. As soon as you start riding, the radar will turn itself on. If you don't want to recharge your new radar often, you know which one to buy. I'm sure you will also appreciate the USB-C charging port, which thankfully became the new standard. Lastly, I want to talk about its connectivity and freezing issues. The radar wouldn't pair with the SR30 computer after I disconnected the SR30 from the Edge 840. I solved this by turning SR30 and the SR30 off and on. Yes, I finally made this section. Freezing issues manifested themselves in that I could not turn the radar off at all. It would not turn off even after pressing and holding the power button for over a minute. This is the first time I've ever encountered problems like this. iGPSport SR30 sits between Garmin Varia RTL515 and Chinese alternatives like Magene L508 and Bryton Gardia R300. It costs $159. The recommended retail price for Varia is $199, but it's often discounted to $149. Magene and Bryton radars cost $129. Before using the SR30 radar, I was skeptical because of its higher price and no new features compared to established radars. I thought, how can it possibly be competitive? After testing it, I think its pricing is a little bit unfortunate. Despite it pleasantly surprised me with the long battery life, battery saver feature, low number of false positives and excellent side visibility, it still has many disadvantages. I'm disappointed by its mount, which doesn't hold up very well on my seat post. The iGPSport app also doesn't offer nearly as much flexibility as the Magene app. I found that the maximum relative detecting speed of 120 km to below, and I also encountered connectivity and freezing issues. That's why I believe the SR30 should cost the same as the Bryton and Magene radars. But as always, it depends on what features you prefer. For example, The longer battery life can be a game changer for you. iGPSport can also fix some of the issues with firmware updates, so we will see if they do so. Anyway, I hope you find this review helpful. If you do so, please like and subscribe to support this channel. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Ciao!